All right, folks, today we're talking about credentialing. Should you get credentialed? How do you get credentialed? What about cash pay? Should I do that instead? Can I do it on my own? What about Alma and Headway and Grow? Is that the best way to be credentialed? What if I leave the platform? Credentialing. Today, that's what we're talking about. This is a question or a topic I'm asked about quite a bit. And I did make a video a little while back about it, but it's time for a 2025 refresh. And that's what we're going to do today. And if you know me by now, hopefully you do. If you haven't, my name is Matt. I'm a therapist in private practice, and I also love to make videos like this to empower other therapists to run, grow private practices that they love. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. As always, in the spirit of transparency, let's just go through my notes together. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So today we're talking about credentialing for therapists. All right, let's go. This is going to be comprehensive. So the first thing that we have to do, number one, is talk about what credentialing is, okay? Now, we'll make this really quick. Most of you probably already know this, but credentialing essentially is when we get into a contract with an insurance company, and what we're basically saying is, I am willing to see the clients who have this insurance, right, at the rate that you and I have agreed upon, right? And I'm gonna make this up. Let's say you get into contract with Aetna, and you get put on their panel, you sign the contract. Aetna basically says, I'll pay you $50, and that means that for that $50, you will see clients who have our insurance, okay? And it gets a little more complicated than that, which we'll get to in a second, but that's essentially what credentialing is, right? It's also called paneling with insurance providers, whatever the case may be, right? It's that, right? Getting in contract with them. All right. With that out of the way, though, the biggest thing that people want to know is whether or not they should do it. What are the pros and cons? In fact, actually, people are often asking how to do it, which leads me to believe that they want to do it, but they're just not sure how. So we'll also talk about that. But I want to rewind a little bit. And first off, when it comes to running our practice and from a business perspective, the way we make any decision, whether it be credentialing or going cash pay or market, it doesn't matter, whatever we're talking about. The first thing is to revisit our goals and vision for our practice, okay? And this is going to be really important because what I see people doing in private practice very often is this will be how it goes. It might be a slow season, right? So maybe the summer they see a dip, and all of a sudden, because there was that dip, they now want to get on insurance panels because they feel like it will help them get more referrals. And although that might be true, that decision might not be aligned with their bigger vision or goal for their business. All right, but they're making that decision based out of fear or out of like a temporary seasonal shift in referrals. And so it's really important that we establish goals for our practice, right? We can have broad goals, we can have a little bit more specific goals, but let me just give you a quick example. So some people, they have a goal of creating a private practice that's accessible. So if that's your goal, then maybe paneling with insurance, it's not so reactionary, but it's part of the vision you have for your practice to be accessible. There's other therapists where maybe they want to work less hours, but they still have a salary goal they want to meet. Well, then it might make sense to try to go cash pay, right? And all of these are going to come with pros and cons. But I always want to encourage the therapists I work with and anyone watching, establish your goals, right? And the goals should not be based on our emotions, all right? Our goals are what can anchor us when our emotions are going a bit haywire, which inevitably happens in private practice. I've been doing it a while. My emotions still go up and down. It's an emotional roller coaster. And if I don't have goals, right, then I'm going to be making a lot of reactionary decisions, which is not good. So hopefully that's the first thing you do, okay? And I'm encouraging you now, establish goals, revisit the goals. You can always change them. But this is the foundation from which we decide whether or not we're going to take insurance, okay? Now, we take those goals and then we also have to weigh the pros and cons, because just because we have a goal or a vision doesn't mean it's realistic, okay? It really far-fetched hypothetical. Maybe someone says, well, I only want to see 2 clients, but I have this salary goal. It doesn't really line up with reality, so you're going to have to see more than that, right? Or maybe people say, well, I do want to take insurance. I want to be accessible, but it takes a lot of time and it's too hard to be paneled with all the different insurance providers and the requirements are too strict, so I can't be on all of them. So we have to cut back a little bit, right? Maybe we're only on a few insurance panels. So it's goals mixed with the reality, which we're kind of labeling as pros and cons. So the first thing we need to do after the goals is to just go through the pros and cons of taking insurance. Now, after this, I'm going to tell you how how we can get paneled, okay? And I'll tell you about Alma, Headway, all that, all right? Don't worry, we're gonna get there. And so I like to be really comprehensive when I do my pros and cons. So I like to do 4 quadrants: pros of insurance, cons of insurance, pros of cash, and cons of cash. That's what we're gonna use in this example here. And these are actually not too complicated. You might already know this. There's not that many, but it's helpful to see them, okay? Now, if we just quickly breeze through what are the pros of taking insurance? Number 1 is we're going to increase client referrals, most likely, right? Now we're going to be on directories, the insurance panel directories. A lot of people are looking to use their insurance, right? So we are probably going to see more client referrals. It can be easier to scale, right? So if we hire people or other therapists, it's one thing to fill your own caseload, but as soon as you hire another therapist, it's a little bit harder to fill their caseload. And so taking insurance is one way to scale to make that a little bit easier, okay? And then again, accessible care. So some people really like this. They like providing care that's accessible, meaning people can use their insurance. Another way is sliding scale, things like that, right? So those are all pros for the most part. And then what are the cons? Now, there are a good number of cons here, okay? So number 1 is the requirements imposed by insurance companies. We all know this. The paperwork, the diagnosis requirements, all sorts of requirements, right? As a therapist, you're familiar with that. We have the risk of clawbacks and audits, albeit the risk is pretty low. Contrary to popular belief, clawbacks and audits, they do happen, don't get me wrong, but they're fairly rare, okay? But it's a real risk, so we have to add it on the cons list. Lower reimbursement, right? And we all are well aware of that too. We're obviously not making our cash rate, mostly not, when you take insurance. And honestly, trying to negotiate with, trying to negotiate with insurance companies, you can, kind of, but not really. So your reimbursement rates will probably be lower, which means we need more clients to reach a particular target salary, okay? These could all be under the con category mostly, okay? So you might be looking at that and go, wow, why would I ever take insurance, right? Well, let's do the pros of cash, the cons of cash. So pros of cash, more money, more cash, right? That makes sense. Fewer restrictions, right? So you are not bound by all these different restrictions put on you by insurance companies. Yet, don't get confused. There are still a lot of things you need to do as a licensed professional. There are 2 differences there. It's a little pro tip. You have licensing and statewide regulatory guidelines, and then you have insurance guidelines, right? They can overlap a little, but they're also 2 different things. So just because you don't take insurance doesn't mean you don't have to follow some of these rules, all right? So just make sure you consult with attorneys about what exactly you need to follow, even if you're not taking insurance. Fewer clients required to reach the target salary, right? Makes sense. What are the cons? Can be difficult to grow and can be difficult to scale because more and more people want to use their insurance, especially with these startup companies. Now, again, if we're just looking straight at cons of pros and cons of insurance, it's obvious that, oh, well, the cons, there's a lot of them. Maybe I'll just try to go cash pay. But then if we look at cash pay, we look at this here, difficult to grow, difficult to scale. Well, this is a big thing, right? This is not neutral, right? Going cash pay is not easy. It's possible, it's not easy. We have to maybe invest more marketing dollars, which we can add here. Let's say more marketing dollars. Let's just say that, right? And so it's not a simple decision, right? So let's just say, for example, we're like, okay, we look at this. You know what? I'm thinking I want to try to go cash pay, right? And the pros are great, but the cons, it might be harder to scale, harder to grow. So that means we're investing in marketing. We're trying to build a really good website. We're trying to do SEO really well. We're trying to set ourselves apart. It's hard work, right? But just the reward is different. Or maybe we're going to say, I really want to scale. I want a group practice. I don't want to deal with all the marketing. I don't really want to, have to really be responsible for growing a cash pay business. I really want more referrals to come a little more seamlessly. So maybe we go with the insurance and we just scale larger, right? So it's all that to say it's not a simple decision and it's unique to everyone. So if we really simplify the last, how long did I talk? 5 minutes or 6 minutes on this, establish your goals, go through the pros and cons, see where they meet, and then make a decision. The other thing I really want people to know, and I have this somewhere, this is not an end-all be-all decision. You can start and try to go cash, and if it's too hard, you can take insurance. You can start by taking insurance, and then you can always de-panel, right? It's de-paneling. I've heard stories, it's hard to do, but you're not bound for life, okay? You can always change and shift. So that should reduce some of the pressure. Do what I'm telling you here in terms of the goals, and the pros and cons, and then let's just try something, all right? That's what we have to do. Now, I'm assuming most people watching this video want to know how to get credentialed, okay? So let me actually tell you how to do that. There are basically 3 ways we can do it. Number 1, you can just do it yourself. What does that involve? It involves going to the website of the insurance company, whether it's Aetna, Cigna, and they'll have a section called For Providers. And then from there, they'll have another section that will say panel or reach out to us if you're interested in becoming a member or something like that. You'll click that and you'll follow their process. It's usually filling out the CAQH, which is this universal, it's not a directory, it's like it has all your information, right? So it's maybe a database is the best way to describe it. It has your MPI, your history, where you went to school, your resume, all that stuff. So most insurance providers have you fill that out, and then they have you fill out their own application, and then you wait till they review it, and then you review the contract, and you can try to negotiate. But it is a process. It's not the most difficult, but it's a bit tedious. It does take time. And then, of course, the insurance companies are often delayed, and you have to go back and forth. So it costs you in time, right? But it's free to do it yourself. The other thing is you need to be aware of is that if you do it yourself, there are some nuances to the process. So knowing how to negotiate or knowing the timing of things or what to say. There are people who have done this a bunch and they do know more, and that can be really helpful insight that you will not have if you do it on your own. I'll share more about that in a second. But doing it on your own, if you have time and you want to save money, you can certainly do that, okay? Hiring someone else to do it for you, this is what I did. So I hired someone to help me do the credentialing, and I really appreciated this because number 1, it did cost me something, but it freed up my time to do other things like therapy and see clients, which if you kind of do the math, the time I bought back by freeing up myself to not have to do all the credentialing, right? The time I got to spend with clients, I was able to make the cost back, right, of how much it cost to be credentialed. So it really did work out. The other thing was the person I used knew the nuances of the credentialing, of the contracting process. So I was able to negotiate a little bit, and only because they told me how and they told me what to do. It wasn't huge, right? It wasn't a massive negotiation. The thing is, and we're going to talk about this with Alma and Headway, we have very limited power to negotiate. Oftentimes the insurance companies are, they're pretty much setting the rate and then saying you take it or leave it, right? But I was able to do that because the person had more knowledge than I did. And you are still completing some of the paperwork. So when I paid someone to help me with credentialing, I was surprised. I still had to fill out a ton of information so that they could then fill out their information. But it did save time. I wasn't going back and forth with the insurance company with all the waiting and figuring out the contracts. So it did save time. Okay, and then finally, we could do platforms like Alma, Headway, Grow. These people who get credentialed for us or do the credentialing for us, they make it really easy, right? There are higher reimbursement rates, often much higher than what you can secure on your own. You cannot do incident to or supervisory billing. So when you credential on your own with some insurers, you're able to do what's called incident to billing, meaning you can have provisionally licensed folks like LMSWs, MHCLPs, seeing clients, and then their client can still use insurance. It's a very specific way of billing, and only a few insurers allow it, okay? But typically you need to be paneled on your own to be able to do that. You cannot do that through platforms like Alma, Headway, Grow. At least as of now, I've never seen a platform that allows it. That might be a con. The other thing is, once you leave these platforms, you're typically no longer paneled, right? So if you're on Headway and you're taking all these insurances through them, if you decide to leave Headway, you're now no longer taking that insurance. Not always a bad thing. You can always panel independently if you'd like to, but it is something to consider that you're only on the panels for as long as you're with that platform. Some of these platforms like Alma, they have a monthly fee. And again, the way to determine if it's worth it is the amount you pay for the fee. Do you make it back plus some with the clients that you're receiving from that platform? And then they make billing very easily. And we have to remember that these are startup companies, which in and of itself comes with issues, okay? Rapid growth, the customer service declines, they're startups. Some people have a lot of thoughts and issues with that. So you just have to be aware that these are startup companies. and you want to do your research on how they operate, their data, how they collect data, use data. So just be aware that most of them are startup companies, and that's something to take into consideration as well. So if you are looking to get credentialed, these are the 3 ways to do it. You really just want to think about what might work best for you. If I was to recommend anything, if you're thinking about doing it on your own and you want to be credentialed outside of the startups, then go ahead and hire someone to help you. It's definitely worth it. And if you're just getting started and you want to taste what it's like to take insurance a little bit. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention is that, maybe I did, it's really easy to bill in these platforms like Alma, Headway, Grow. They make it super easy. When you take insurance on your own, you have to learn how to do your own billing. It's actually not hard, but the learning curve is a little bit steep. But again, once you do it, it is quite easy. But again, you eliminate that learning curve by using Alma, Headway, or Grow. So these are different ways you can get credentialed, right? Hopefully this helps you at least inform you about the different methods. And at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It comes down to the goals, the pros and cons, what works best for you in your practice and your goals and visions. If you have more questions, you want to know more about this, I am happy to answer any questions you might have. Feel free to reach out to me. I recently have started to offer a bespoke marketing service where we help therapists with coaching and marketing and all sorts of done for you, done with you services. And if you're interested in that, there's going to be a link down below. You can book a free call. I'm happy to share with you more about what I'm offering, a bit more about your goals as well, and how we can help you achieve those. All right. Other than that, hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you are now leaving this video more, how should I say it, more empowered, more encouraged, more excited about growing your private practice than before you saw the video. All right. I'll see you soon.